Welcome to another episode of the NeoLiberal podcast. I am Renaldo McKenzie, and with me is the Deputy Chief of Turning Point for Children, Mr. David Fair, who has joined us before to do part one of the state of child welfare. And this is part two, where he will provide an update and provide us with some more information on this breaking news which he shared with us earlier today, and I had to get him on the show at the last minute. So, David, I would like to welcome you again. This is the third time. Welcome to another episode of the NeoLiberal podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and just before you begin, I actually published a quick blur of this. If I could bring it up real quickly, I actually published a quick blur. I'm trying to find it. Just to share it with the viewers quickly. Here we go. I just published the podcast. If I could find it, can't find it yet. Here we go. This is not it. This is not it. Here we go. Breaking news. So I published a breaking news earlier. It says breaking news. It says CUAs abandoned by social service agencies over impasse with DHS. And of course, you put it into perspective for us, but social service organizations that operate the community umbrella agencies are at an impasse with the Department of Human Services in Philadelphia, the government super agency that oversees and funds the CUAs programs. In fact, some social service organizations are abandoning their CUA programs over an insurance requirement which the CUAs can't meet, given limited funding and recent legal claims that they must pay out. One agency chief said, "We're giving up the CUAs as of August 2023. We can't afford the insurance. The insurance costs are in the seven figures, and DHS won't reimburse. It's a complicated story." Now, we want to hear what that complicated story is. I continue to say that DHS have immunity because they are government, so we are the ones who get sued even when they made the error. But we want to hear more about this story, and of course, Mr. David Fair will shed some more insight as to what's going on. David, welcome. Tell us what's going on with this story that you just wrote for us.
Well, what you're referring to is my organization, Turning Points for Children, which operates four of the community umbrella agencies, serving almost 3,000 children. We have been doing that for 10 years. And during that period of time, in a few instances, things have not gone the way they're supposed to go in terms of a case which leads to legal action from time to time. And our situation is unique since we are larger than all of the other CUAs. So as a result, we tend to have more issues around our cases. And that has led to, not just for us, but for all of the CUAs who have similar problems, but not at the scale that we have. It's led to insurance premiums skyrocketing. Philadelphia Insurance, which is the largest insurer of nonprofits in southeastern Pennsylvania and one of the largest in the country, decided a few years ago to get out of the business of insuring anything related to child welfare because of the imbalance in what's called the risk. So, for example, if the city agencies in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, city and county agencies, are protected from lawsuits no matter what they've done because they are government agencies. In the CUA situation, they subcontract the work that the county would normally be doing, the city normally would be doing, but they can't assign to us the same immunity that they have. As a result, DHS requires us to carry enough insurance to cover up to $10 million in damages in a particular case. And the result of that is that what I would say are often, not always, but often are unscrupulous lawyers see the opportunity to file a lawsuit about sometimes very small things, sometimes things that had nothing to do with the work of the CUA, but they sue us because they know we're covered up to $10 million. And
Yes.
that whenever you have a situation involving a child, going to court is not a very appealing option because the lawyers will be able to dramatize whatever happened to the child, and a jury is more likely to give a big settlement to the child or to the family because of the nature of the case. So as a result of that, the insurance companies don't like to go to court. They settle the cases. And even when we've had a number of cases where, in our opinion, we didn't do anything incorrectly, that we followed the rules. Things happen in families, especially dysfunctional families like the ones we're often working with. And but because they happened while we had an open case, the lawyers come in and sue us because of the thing that happened that we had nothing to do with. And the insurance company wants it to go away, so they settle the case. Over the years, not just in our CUA, but in all 10 CUAs, there have been lawsuits like that. And the costs of the premiums for that insurance goes up every year. Yes. Now all CUAs, not just the Turning Point's CUAs, are having difficulty finding insurance companies that will cover the CUAs. It's not, and then when you do find them, they're extraordinarily expensive. Our insurance premium alone is in the 7 figures just to pay the premium, and it's close to that with the other smaller CUAs, who again don't have the same level of challenge that we have, but they're all challenged by this. And what that does is threaten the very framework of how we do child welfare in Philadelphia. The solution has to be that there, just as it has to be in the other times we've talked to each other, it has to be adequately resourcing the child welfare system. It means not only, as we talked about last time, being able to pay our workers a living wage so that they can do the work that these children and families need, but it also means that we have to be able to either be afforded the same protection the city has from frivolous lawsuits, or they have to be willing to help us cover the premiums that we have to pay for the insurance, which they have determined they're not able to do. So that's too complicated, but that's the situation faced with us.
Yes, but this is quite interesting. So in a sense, this core system, with this core system, and social service agencies have a contractual arrangement with DHS to provide, to execute and to provide child, youth, and family services or case management services to youth and families on behalf of the department. But while you guys are funded by the department does, the funding does not go beyond any kind of discrepancy or claims that might come from doing the work of case management.
No, we have to get insurance to cover those expenses.
Okay, and so so what is DHS saying? Is it that they are pushing back, saying that they won't cover the insurance claims brought to?
Well, they excuse me. They're not under any legal obligation to cover their claims. I think the real issue is that even if DHS makes a mistake in a case, they're protected from being sued. We're not protected from being sued. So the lawyers, since they can't go after DHS, go after us. And even though we didn't make the mistake, they're accountable for whatever settlement comes out of that lawsuit. And we then have to have insurance that covers the cost of that settlement. And it's getting harder and harder and harder to find that insurance.
Mm.
We've gone literally all over the world looking for insurance companies that are willing to cover these services, but the risk is very high. And insurance companies are in the business of making money. They're not in the interest, they're not in the business of paying settlements. They want to avoid those things.
Yes.
But they have no choice but to pay these large settlements. And as a result, the system winds up spending millions of dollars just on insurance that it could be using to provide services to children and families.
Okay, I have two questions. I have several questions, actually. I have lots of questions just to distill this for people who might be asking more in terms of insurance claim, because here we are. You earlier you said, when I listened to one of the reports you sent me, you indicated that DHS has, in some instances, made are responsible for some of the decisions leading to these claims. So, can you tell us some more about that? How are these? How is it that DHS is involved in the decision making? At the same time, they cannot be held responsible. The CUAs are being held responsible.
The CUA's responsibility is to do case management work. The case remains a DHS case. Yes. DHS determines whether or not to put a child in foster care, not the CUAs. The DHS decides when a child has been taken from a family because of child abuse or neglect or alleged child abuse and neglect. Only DHS can remove that child. Only DHS can return that child. Yes. Those are not CUA decisions. The CUA has no responsibility to make those kinds of decisions. But when DHS makes the wrong decision and something happens that shows it was the wrong decision, they're protected from lawsuit. A classic example is the case that was actually in the newspapers a few years ago, where three young girls were removed from their father's care because the father was engaged in various kinds of illegal activity. Yes. After being in care for a while, DHS decided to return the children to the father. So did the child's own lawyer agree to return the children to the father. And they did return the children to the father. And then shortly thereafter, the child sexually abused the children.
Yes.
We did not return the children to their father. We did not fail in any way in that case. We did everything we were supposed to do. But DHS is protected from being sued. So the lawyer for the children, who had initially agreed to send the children back to the father, turned around and sued us for returning the children to the father so that they could, and then they got sexually abused. That ended up being an $11 million court settlement. $11 million. Those children deserve every penny of that because they were returned by the child welfare system to an abusive father, to a sexually molesting father. However, Turning Points for Children in that case did not make the mistake. The mistake that was made was the decision at DHS to return the children to the father. We had another situation in which we begged DHS not to return an older youth or send an older youth into a foster home because the child was dangerous. And we felt that child needed to be in a residential program where they could be monitored more carefully than an individual foster parent can do. The individual child went to a foster home and killed one of his other foster children in the home. Wow. And later on, he killed the foster parent. And we are on record as saying this kid is too dangerous to put into a foster home. Yet DHS overruled our objection and put the kid in the foster home. DHS cannot be sued, so we are sued for a decision DHS made. Yes. That's the unfairness of the whole situation. Nobody's questioning the children who've been damaged in some serious way by their involvement in the child welfare system have every right to seek legal recourse. But they're seeking legal recourse from the wrong party. They're seeking legal recourse from the community umbrella agencies who are not, I mean, I'm not saying in every case we're perfect, but in many cases, we're not responsible, yet we're the ones who get sued. And our argument for years has been either they adequately fund protection for us with insurance, or they give us the same immunity that they have so that we're not spending millions and millions that need to be being spent on taking care of children, on paying legal settlements and making attorneys rich.
Okay, I have to quick one. How much money does the CUAs get in order to, or social agencies get to perform the duty of community child youth services?
Well, it varies depending on the number of cases that they have, how big the CUAs. The CUAs get contracts of somewhere between 11 and 14 million dollars a year,
Okay.
depending on the size of the CUA and the number of cases that it has.
So if you are sued then for, let's say, $11 million, which you were sued for, who pays that 11 million, and what do you have left to do the work of Child, Youth, and Family Services after 11
Well,
million?
it doesn't really work that way. The 11 to 14 million dollars I just referenced is for the actual services. Any
Okay.
legal fees are over and above that. So that's the reason we go to get insurance.
Okay.
So we pay the insurance company. The insurance company has to determine how much risk is there. If they pay, if just for throw some numbers out, if we pay $1 million for a premium to get $10 million of coverage, which is what we're required to have, that means the insurance company has to pay up to $10 million to settle the case, or can pay up to $10 million to
Yes.
settle a case that might come in. That's the insurance company's money that's paying for that premium. I mean, paying for that verdict.
Yes.
And all we're paying really is the $1 million premium.
Oh.
The problem is that there's usually more than one case in every CUA that gets brought to court, because they get brought to court regardless of whether there's any merit to them, because the attorneys know that the insurance companies are going to want to settle. So even if it was a situation where we did absolutely nothing wrong, that if we went to court, we would probably win. The insurance company is all about reducing its risk itself. So they're going to say, we'll settle rather than risk going to court.
Mm.
We had a case that was settled that virtually nothing had gone wrong in the case, but the lawyer sued knowing that the insurance company was going to offer a settlement.
Oh.
So he wound up getting a $2 million settlement, of which he personally got an $800,000 payment just for filing the case, because the insurance company settled it automatically rather than to take the risk of going to court. It's really a gaming of the legal
Yes.
system by the lawyers, not by the children who and their families who might have gotten hurt, but by the lawyers who see it as a way to make a quick buck out of the pain of those children and out of the government's.
Right.
funding.
What kind of immunity does DHS have?
They have immunity for anything that happens in a case up to about $500,000. They can be sued for up to about $500,000. However, what they also have is 80 lawyers in the city solicitor's office who do everything possible to stretch out those cases over years. So if it's never been worth it before the CUAs, it never was worth it for somebody to sue DHS, even if they would only get $500,000, which is in the legal business is a small settlement. Even if they only get $500,000, it might be 5 years.
Yes.
Before they get that $500,000. And meanwhile, the lawyers are having to go back to court and file paperwork and do all this work. So they don't make any money out of it. When the lawyers don't make lawsuits unless they're going to make some money out of it. And the $500,000 is a small lid. It's a small maximum. Ours is 10 million.
Yes.
That's the difference. So it's more profitable for attorneys to sue, even when they know there's not really a case there, because they know the insurance companies will try to settle. And whatever they settle for is money that grows on trees for the attorneys.
Yes.
Now, the families benefit as well. That's absolutely true. And that's not a bad thing to have happen. But all we were saying as the CUAs at Turning Points is that if this is the way the game is played, we're doing this on behalf of DHS and on behalf of the public. Somebody has to make it possible for us to do this without going bankrupt. And we couldn't. We couldn't get it done. So we're avoiding the risk of bankruptcy, avoiding going out of business, and going through a months-long process currently of moving our CUAs to new agencies who will themselves struggle with insurance. But it's easier to get insurance if you have just one CUA. One CUA might have 400 or 500 kids. We have 4 CUAs with 3,000 kids. And so that turns out to be untenable. That turns out to not be a safe way to do this work because the risk is just too high.
What about the legal involvement in decision making? Say, for example, I've worked in case management before, and usually the case manager would manage the case, and then if the case is court involved, then you go to court and make a recommendation based on the progress of the case and make a determination based on whether or not what does the case manager thinks and what's the case manager's recommendation. Is it that the DHS also have other recommendations that they make to the courts? How is the decision making in terms of the determination who sent home a child? And what about the legal system? Do they make a determination?
A child never goes home until DHS agrees. Our worker cannot make a determination that a child should be returned to a home. We can recommend that we believe a child is ready, or the family is ready for this child to go home. DHS doesn't have to agree with us. If DHS doesn't agree with us, the child doesn't go home. There are those situations, as has happened in a couple of these lawsuits, where we have said the child should not go home, and DHS has said they should. And when that turns into a mistake, again, it's the CUA that gets sued, not the person who made the decision.
It's quite interesting. So if this is what's going to happen? So now the Turning Point will only have one CUA agency, or you guys are abandoning all of your CUA agencies?
We're not abandoning them. We're
Sorry, that's strong language.
Transferring the CUAs to other community agencies. All 4 of them. 3 of them are expected to move on from Turning Points as of August 1st. The 4th one is going to be moving a little later because of some difficulties that occurred that made it impossible for them to move at the same time. But all 4 of them we expect to be operated by other agencies as of Labor Day, and there will be no disruption of the care of the children, because it's the same workers. It's just they'll be working for a different agency.
This seems like a problem of bureaucracy, in a sense. The bureaucracy in terms of child management, you have the social service agencies providing child youth services, and then you also have a government agency, where I call them a super agency, that interferes in the decision making, but at the same time they don't take responsibility when they don't take responsibility or accountability for their actions. However, they have the responsibility of administering or overseeing the service. But in a sense, CUA has created a system, a strategy, an opportunity whereby the government agencies can pass on accountability for certain decisions that they make leading to any kind of insurance or legal issues, while at the same time they are actively involved in making decisions.
That's correct.
This seems like backward. We are going backward and not forward.
Well, I mean, what you described is the essential problem. I think that clearly what you just described is not moving forward. From the city's perspective, it's not moving backward because they, in fact, have never been troubled by insurance issues. So because they have this low bar, low accountability of only $500,000, and the lawyer is going to spend more than that just pursuing the case. So I think what it really is that the original architects of the community umbrella agencies didn't grasp what was likely to happen, because prior to the community umbrella agencies, there were very few lawsuits related to these cases because it was more expensive to sue than it was to get than the settlement you could get when you sued the city, because the city was protected. And
Yes.
so I think when the CUAs first were designed, this was not considered a major issue. When it became a major issue over time, when it was clear that the lawyers were some unscrupulous lawyers, not all of them, but some of them, were taking advantage of the system to make money off the suffering of these children by suing the CUAs for extraordinary amounts of money that they knew would have to be settled by the insurance companies. When that started to happen, it became clear that something different needed to be done about it. But in order to, in fact, we had also proposed legislation in Harrisburg that would give us the same immunity that the Department of Human Services had. And that would have passed in the legislature in Harrisburg if it wasn't for the number of trial lawyers who were members of the legislature, members of the General
Yes.
Assembly. And they realized that by giving us immunity, that was going to take a lot of money out of their pockets. And so in the end, we couldn't get the bill passed to give us the same protection.
Yes, and then again, you also think about families that are affected by the. So if I were to ask you about the risk, the issue of risk, part of the risk come from decision making that may lead to the children, by exposing the children, the families, to some kind of personal injury. So in the sense, so this comes from kind of decision making. This probably comes from professionalism. Is it that the insurance companies are saying that, well, because of what had happened in the past with insurance claims and and potential for that in the future, because I think insurance companies use the potential for negligence or the potential for legal claims and so on. Where does this potential for risk come from, and why is it so high risk?
Well, so I think it's the nature of the work that we do.
Okay.
We only get involved with a family when there's been some determination that the child is at risk or has been harmed. So we're not talking about, we're not usually talking about very stable families.
Yes.
Or stable parents.
Yes.
Or stable children even. And so the likelihood of something happening that shouldn't happen is higher among the families where this risk is so much higher.
Yeah.
It's not that they're bad families. The vast majority of families are healthy families. They're just going through difficulties.
Yes.
It's interesting to note that there may have been, across all 10 CUAs, maybe 30 lawsuits since 2013.
Yes.
And that's 10 years, that's over 10 years. And when you consider that especially in the early years, there were 7,000 kids in the system.
Yes.
And even today, where the system is a lot smaller. There's still over 4,000 kids, close to 5,000 kids in the system. And when you have 30 situations that were bad enough that somebody thought to sue, that I hate to say it because it's real people getting hurt.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, it's not as if we're getting overwhelmed by large numbers of lawsuits. This is a tiny number of lawsuits compared to the number of children that we've cared for. Even at Turning Points alone, we have served almost 11,000 kids since 2013. And we've had 30 situations that ended up in lawsuits and maybe 7 that ended up in court. So it's a small, tiny number we're talking about. It's just very expensive.
Yes. And I'm going to get to wrap up because we don't want this to be too long, but what's going to be, I think you mentioned it earlier in terms of solutions. What can we do as a society, as people in communities? What can we do to support the efforts of the CUAs and to also apply pressure and to lobby for change? What can we do? What's the way forward to strengthen our CUAs and the services we provide?
That's not necessarily something you can talk about quickly, but we have a great opportunity with the election of a new mayor in November. It's likely to be Sherelle Parker, who's the Democratic candidate. So it could be that lightning strikes and David O, who's the Republican candidate, gets elected. Both of them are committed to child welfare reform.
Good.
I believe that if we had a city government and also a state and federal government, but ultimately it's the city government that has to make the commitment to make sure that we are not unnecessarily involving families in the child welfare system. It's no coincidence, in my view, that 85% of the families involved in the child welfare system were Black and Latino families. That's not because Black and Latino families endanger their children more than white families. It's just that we monitor Black and Latino families in a different way than we do white families. It's interesting that in a place like Lower Merion, which is overwhelmingly white and reasonably wealthy, you have very few instances of child abuse and neglect. Whereas in Kensington, we have very high rate of instances of child abuse and neglect. And that's partly because of poverty. Children can be neglected because of poverty.
You just thought that's what you call relative deprivation. I talk about that in Caribbean thought, relative deprivation, which is a Marxist materialist
absolutely
theory, but it is true. The correlation between high amount of poverty and income inequality also leads to high amount of crime and neglect and so on. Sorry about that.
That's true. No, and that definitely is true. You are going to see higher levels.
Yeah.
But you take kids away from their families on the slimmest of evidence, and we do that because it seems to be okay in the United States and in Philadelphia to disrupt the Black family in a way we would never do with a white family. It's like the workers who go out and do the investigations are basically told, you're going to get into a lot of trouble if you visit a family and something's not right, and you leave the kid there and they get hurt, you're going to get blamed for that. So the worker is motivated to take the child because it's the only way to protect themselves. And that happens on hundreds of cases every month in Philadelphia. And these are not most of the children who are in foster care because their family was, quote, neglecting them, not hurting them.
Yes.
So there's a simple solution to that. Help them get jobs, help them create a community where there's opportunities for them to get the resources they need to care for them. And I've met and interacted with thousands of families over the past decade. And the bottom line is I've rarely met a parent who didn't want the whole world for their children. It's not their problem. It's society's problem that
Yeah.
keeps people poor, that keeps people isolated from the resources that they need. And it's the people who make decisions to not have enough mental health services, to not have enough food services, to not have enough housing. You create those situations and things are going to happen that
Yes.
put children at risk. And that keeps the DHS system thriving because we don't do enough to create a safe community for children to grow up in. So I'm hoping the new mayor will be willing to go to new lengths to make sure that there are resources in the community to keep families safe so that the families don't ever have to touch a DHS worker or a CUA worker because we put the resources into a neighborhood so that the families in the neighborhood could take care of themselves.
Wow, that's quite powerful. And to be honest, that is how we will end. There is nothing else to be said after that. And I hope that people in Philadelphia, people all over the world, will put child welfare at the front of their list. Just so you know, because children are a priority. We said children are the future. They are now and they are tomorrow. And we have to build a future for them in order for us to deal with some of the problems that we have in the society. Of course, we are the NeoLiberal Round, brought to you by the NeoLiberal Corporation. We're always serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges. And how do we do so? By making popular what was the monopoly. That is communication. And so we're happy to have, again, David Fair, who is joining us and talking about the state of child welfare. And we hope that the issue with the CUAs, the issue with the child welfare will be properly resolved and dealt with. I don't know if AI have anything to say about that. But David, thank you so much. And please, guys, you can donate to subscribe for free to the NeoLiberal Round. We do need your support to grow the show. We have a lot of show, a lot of programming, a lot of dynamic things happening at the NeoLiberal Corporation. Visit our website, theneoliberal.com and renaldocmckenzie.com. You can support us by going to anchor.fm/theneoliberal/support. We are available in over 36 countries and over 12 streams in video on YouTube now as well. And this will be on YouTube, but also in audio podcasts. We're also going to write we're also going to do an article about this, so you can visit the NeoLiberal journals and the NeoLiberal post. And just so you know, I have a book, Neoliberalism, which was reviewed as an erudite economic analysis. So please check it out, and we have it available right here at our NeoLiberal store. You don't have to go to Amazon. You don't have to go to Barnes & Noble. You can if you want to, but you can get it from the NeoLiberal store. But thank you so much, and for this opportunity. Yes, David, thank you. This was great. This is good. I really appreciate you. We will have that. We have to get some coffee. We have to meet and get some coffee next time. Okay.
Let me know when you're available.
Yes. I'm still celebrating my birthday because it's Wednesday to Wednesday. I'm celebrating my birthday month and my birthday week. So let's probably do it this week. Yeah, man. I'll talk with you, and I'll get with you on LinkedIn. Take care. Walk good.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.